Welcome to the Humanergy Leadership Podcast, where we tackle your toughest leadership challenges and share practical tools to help you lead with impact.
Hey everybody, you're listening to the final episode in our special anniversary series, The TrueSuccess Blueprint. I'm Mimi, and today I'm talking with John and David about two goals that help Humanergy sustain our work for the long haul: living mindful, purposeful, and balanced lives, and maintaining a lean, scalable performance infrastructure. We'll talk about the habits, the mindsets, and the systems that have helped Humanergy stay strong for 25 years, and how you can apply them too. Hey John, hey David.
Hey,
Hey,
Mimi.
Mimi.
So we'll jump right in. What does balance look like for each of you, and how do you model it as leaders?
Am I going first thing? Okay. So for me, I actually, in my mind, I know we wrote the word balance because it's typically what people talk about. Um, but in my mind, I convert that to optimized. Sort of balance for me sort of implies this idea of like equal or, you know, trade-off, etc. And um, I find it more useful, at least in my mind, to think how do these various important parts of my life combine together to have the net best combined impact. And so that sort of gets to sort of really thinking about the connection and how each sort of fuels and contributes to sort of my greater good, if you like. And so I monitor how I'm doing personally, how my family's doing, how am I doing with friends, how's the team doing, how's the clients, how's the business, these key aspects. And then, we also talk about, mental, physical, social, and spiritual. And so there's obviously a number of elements of that. And I think what I look to pay attention to where you know, some aspect is impacting the greater in a negative way, and I look to sort of adjust that. Sometimes it's by dialing it up, and sometimes it's by dialing it down. Um, so that's how I do it personally, and that's how I think about it personally. We can talk a little bit, I think we should, about how we do that organizationally as well. But I'd invite Dave to sort of jump in.
Well, if I were to summarize a lot of what John's saying, I'd go to another tool that's available at humanergy.com in the freebies drop down, and also is mentioned on episode 46 of the Humanergy Leadership Podcast, which is the balance chair, which kind of is our summary version of what John was talking about, that there's four legs on this chair and you have to have something in each of them to be balanced, and it's work, you have something meaningful contribution to society. I label it family, but it's the second one, which is really about the social connections that you have. It doesn't have to be blood. It's those people that you connect with that maintain your energy and look after you, if you like. And then self, which is eat, sleep, exercise in the right way, and spirit, which is whatever spirit means to you. Sometimes it can be church on Sunday or temple on Saturday. Sometimes it's going for a run or just walking in the woods. But it's that thing that reignites your spirit and that energizes you internally, that kind of soulful piece. And what I've found is having something in all four of those is what creates balance. And if any one of those starts to dominate, then it starts to tip the chair over a little bit. And so I think that's philosophically where we've stood at Humanergy for 25 years, is that have something in all four of those quadrants. Otherwise, you're useless to us in the work quadrant, because we know the interdependence of those four, and are you taking care of yourself? And that even comes down to a very practical way, which we start our monthly Humanergy meeting asking folks to review mind, body, and spirit. And we don't have any more definition of that. Just, hey, how are you doing in terms of your mind, body, and spirit? And people take that and reflect on it in slightly different ways, depending on who they are. But quite often it's reinforcing the fact that people are spending time outside of that work quadrant and keeping their chair balanced. I think the other thing I'd go to is, and I see this an awful lot at the moment, there's an imbalance in people because they're not taking the vacation that's due to them. And when we started Humanergy, is perhaps because we both come from that more, I call it the European model, but even though John's from down under, but that idea of taking vacation is good. And we said, how much vacation should we have to start with? And we said 4 weeks, which is out of the norm for American companies, but much more in alignment with European companies. And then there's the expectation that people take that because we want you to be rested and energized and to be making use of that time outside of work, because then that brings a better version of you back to work. And so, and I see all too often clients that we work with who give up vacation because they've worked too hard. And it's that lack of real focus on this balance. And it's a belief, and I've seen it work out with clients, that if you actually maintain that balance and take that vacation, you'll probably get more work done in less time because of those other things that you've got in the legs of your chair.
So just to add to a couple of things that Dave mentioned, just because what he shared sort of spurred some thoughts. One is, yeah, I mean, yes, we have I feel like in our structure and our policy of, 4 weeks. I think the and is that's really important is, and there is a culture that is, um, you know, keenly values how's it going in life, that's interested. And people, I don't believe, feel like constrained in any way, shape, or form or guilty or concerned about taking vacation. In fact, it's almost the reverse of that. And maybe comment to that, but I do think that there's an active interest and encouragement for, tell us about your vacation. That's fantastic. And what did you do? And I mean, and so my hope is that it feels very different for people. I mean, as Dave mentioned, there are people that we work with who, because of their longevity in an organization, maybe even have 5 weeks vacation, and every year, they're cashing in or losing chunks of that. I mean, I've had people tell me they have never had more than a 1 week vacation in their career, and that's plus or minus 30 years type of thing. And then they finally do take that 2 week vacation, and they come to realize that it was qualitatively different than 1 week because there was enough time to separate and to really have a qualitatively different experience, with their family or with whatever activity or place that they've chosen to spend it in. Um, so that's one thing I just wanted to pick up on. The other thing I want to add too is we actually, you know, obviously when you're doing this work, the more work you do, the more work you get paid for. And everybody at Humanergy loves doing the work. They love spending time with clients, and they hate saying no to opportunities to work with people. And so we actually have, not, in a sense, we have a KPI for, hey, are we doing enough work? And we also have a KPI, if you like, or a measure that says, are we doing too much work? We actually literally monitor and have a boundary condition for, too much of work. And I've actually haven't come across that in any other setting, in all the clients that I've worked with. And it's, at least for me personally, it's actually been was a significant shift because without that, it was sort of fun and easy to keep saying, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I'll fit that in. Yeah, I'll make that happen, etc. And then, discovering the hard way that, my chair had tipped over with me on top of it and other things as well. So I do say that I would offer that if it's important, this balance, then you have to treat it like it's important. And, you know, you get what you measure. So make sure you measure what matters. And for us at Humanergy, what matters is having mindful, purposeful, and balanced lives. It's critical to our mission and everything that we do.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I have only ever worked for an American company. So before I worked for Humanergy, the most vacation time I've ever had was 2 weeks. And so coming into an organization where there was a 4 week vacation policy was, like it just spoke to my heart because I am a traveler and it is important to me. And I can tell you that and you probably notice when I come back from a trip, I am feeling super refreshed and super rejuvenated, and I have much more to give to the organization than if I only had the 2 weeks or less than that in some folks' case, which is, I think it's such a misstep on a lot of organizations' part because they're burning their people out and they're not helping them live their best lives. So how could they possibly give their best to the organization?
Mhm.
So.
I think it's about living it as well. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's that because your other part of the question was how do we do it, and we live that. And at the end of 2014, I came to the team at the time and said, "I got this opportunity to sail the Atlantic next year. I'm going to be gone for 8 weeks." And that's obviously more than the vacation policy. And I understand there's going to be a crimp on the organization if I'm not here for 2 months. And the response I got from the entire team was, "What do we need to do to help that happen?" And everything was, "Yep. What do we need to do? How can we do that?" And Phil, who worked for us at the time, was, "What can I do? Can I support your inbox? Can I take care of all that?" And so the beauty of the team gelling around that opportunity and being supportive of that was I came back after 2 months off to a nearly empty inbox because the team had structured it and supported it. And I think that's the payoff of creating that culture where you value the roundedness of folks. And that was really warming to come in and say, "Hey, I'm going to be gone for 2 months next year and it's going to crimp the organization." And there wasn't the slightest hint of, "Oh, what are we going to do?" It was all a matter of how can we help? How can we support this? Episode 35 of the podcast talks about the trip, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just watching you all live it and walk the walk. Some people might have a vacation policy, or there's organizations I know that they do the unlimited vacation, but then their leadership doesn't take any. And so that makes everyone else feel like they can't take any either. So you get what you model, and you guys do a great job modeling vacation, and I appreciate it.
Well,
So
just for our audience, just to emphasize that this is part of the total true success package and is vital to a thriving, successful organization. We do occasionally run into some self-justifying explanations from people where it's like, well, if you don't run a tight ship, etc., people walk all over you and take advantage of you, etc., etc., etc. And yes, you do need to have good measurement around the right things of performance and, accountability. And none of that precludes, you know, enabling people to bring their best self to work. And that's really lean scale, mindful, purposeful, balanced lives could be actually rewritten as how do we ensure that everybody can bring their best self to work? And if people bring their best self to work, then that feeds into how we make a difference, our financial freedom and security, our deep and broad client pipeline, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, it's sort of another example of, being wise about, you know, how you think and how you operate.
I think that's a great segue into how we ensure our infrastructure that stays lean but still supports growth. I think
Mhm.
part of the leanness that we're talking about is like when I go on a vacation for 2 weeks, there is someone else that can kind of step in and help take care of some of my role. And that's because we've created kind of a nice symbiotic relationship amongst our coworkers and our teammates. So if you two would like to speak to how do we ensure our infrastructure stays lean and still supports growth, I'm sure our listeners would love to hear more.
Mhm.
Well, I just push back on that one you just shared, actually, to start off with, because we didn't do that. We didn't make sure there was a backup for everything you do. We just set the table out and you did that. And part of that was, hey, if I want to take 2 weeks off and there's a payroll involved in that, then somebody else has to do payroll. And you took the ownership to say, I'm going to train Tiffany to do the payroll so that we've got backup and we're not single point failure. And so I think it goes back to if you have the right people and you set the right frame at the boundaries, if you like, then people will thrive in that and do the right thing. And so I think that's a great example of, you taking the ownership and saying, I want to be the best version. And what that requires is for me to cross train. And so I will do that. And I don't remember it being a request.
It wasn't. It was I would like to take 2 weeks vacation, straight
Yeah.
2 weeks, and I want to make sure I still have a job when I get back. So I want to make sure everything, all my T's are crossed and my I's are dotted.
Well, and I think that was fairly early on. So there's still an essence of feeling threatened in there that maybe was a hangover from a previous job. That
Your
that
hangover.
I would imagine now it wouldn't feel like, oh, I want to go away for 2 weeks and I want to make sure I've got a job when I got back. It would be, I want to go away for 2 weeks and I want to make sure the organization runs smoothly while I'm gone because I've got ownership.
Definitely that. And I think part of that ownership is for me, I mean, I love working for Humanergy, so I want to take care of it. And so part of that care has to do with making sure that my T's are crossed and my I's are dotted, and so that I do continue to have the position.
There you go. See, you've done your job, Mimi. You've got the Englishman to shed a
I
tear.
cry.
Yeah. Well, I can think I'll step in, and I think some thoughts that I would have is, one is when we started, it was just Dave and John, and so there was a lot of things that you could handle. That was, the organization was like 90, 95% in one of our heads type of thing. And we started to grow, and really it became the reality was more and more pressing that this is not going to run off um, you know tribal knowledge, even though it was a very small tribe. There's a phase change, and we really need to. So, in fact, this particular lean, scalable performance infrastructure was an add to the original True Success. The original True Success was the previous seven that we've covered, and probably as we sort of became, this team, um, then it became pressing that we really sort of focus on how do we set ourselves up to be scalable. And so then, we purposefully started to invest in, um, you know, smart systems, processes, um, um, cross training is an example, etc., that enabled us to be able to, scale efficiently and to be able to run, with a bigger team. And I also would add that if we go back in time prior to COVID, we saw each other, you know, certainly most weeks, not every day, but I mean, we would see each other physically and be together in a great office, and it was a lot of things could just happen naturally and organically, etc. Well, now we do not have an office; we are fully virtual, you know, and spread across the countryside, etc. And so again, you know, having lean, scalable performance structure literally is a requirement for the other seven elements to actually work, um, you know, if you know, efficiently and effectively. Um, and so that's the one thing I would add. And you know, your sort of question is, you know, how do we do that? I think one of the strongest things that we do is actually the CI log or the continuous improvement log. So yes, you know, we have spent some time setting things up, and we also continually um, maintain and like incrementally evolve our processes and systems through when things come up that we didn't anticipate, or and you know there's a failure, then we contain it, we fix it, and then we make sure that it never happens again. And so, you know, we don't have to like build heavy lift these systems and structures complete out of the box in totality. You know, it's actually, you know, we do invest to get it up, but then because we focus on it ongoing, the systems, you know, evolve in a way that is, you know, relatively painless and small incremental continuous improvement. And I think that's been a real secret of our success in this area as well.
John,
I think
Please.
can I real quick, I was going to ask, can you give a quick overview of what exactly the CI log is for our listeners so that it kind of sets up the structure in case they're interested in implementing something similar?
Um, so the CI log is, I mean, it's physical form, it's a spreadsheet. And then anytime something doesn't quite happen how we want it to happen, it doesn't really matter what it is. In terms of in internal logistics, client management, service, etc. Those things, you know, get logged. And that includes not only misses, but I think near misses as well. So we have a very generous idea of anything that's not quite how we want it. And then it, you know, it literally identifies, you know, how do we contain slash fix this thing, you know? And then it also has an explicit area that we've, you know, really, at least I lean on. And I think we lean on is, you know, how do we prevent this from happening again? And, you know, that everybody can contribute to that. I mean, I think Mimi, you own it, correct?
Mhm.
Ultimately. And we also have a monthly cadence of review, just so we're all aware and we sort of maintain that mindset of continuous improvement as well. So that would be my thoughts. I mean, I don't know if you're probably closer to it. Do you have anything that you would add that I didn't touch on?
I mean, I think just as a general, you've said it multiple times, but CI stands for continuous improvement. So it quite literally is the log of our continuous improvement. It's a place for us to log our mistakes or near mistakes and then put in what the course of action was we did to correct it, and then what course of action we would take to mitigate it moving forward. And the expectation is that we report out on that on a monthly basis. And it creates a space where it's, I don't want to say no big deal, but it doesn't feel scary to report out on something that you did that maybe wasn't the right thing to do. It creates the space to feel safe learning in public and hold also, a certain standard of accountability and kind of let everyone know, like, here's what happened and here's how it's going to not happen again. And so everyone's aware and we move forward. There's no beating anyone up. There's no, it just, it's just a report out and then you move on. And
Mhm.
it is a very cool system.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to pick up on something, go back a little bit to something John said that it kind of covers all of this, the real life application of continuous improvement. But for the longest time, we had this beautiful office in downtown historic Marshall that was really comfortable old building that we looked after and treated well. It felt very much, it was resonant of Humanergy and everything we did. And it worked perfectly when we got it. We were there a lot. But then what started to happen is the occupancy actually went down for a whole host of reasons. People were relocated and geographically, and other people went to more part-time. And so we recognized that we weren't filling that space with the level that we once had. And so then came the question of, is this smart use of our resources? And after it took a little bit of conversation to get us to that through this lean, scalable performance infrastructure, we actually chose to get rid of the office and in 2019 pretty much moved to virtual because that helped us be lean and scalable. And what that also did was shake up the way we thought. And so not long after that, our Mimi's predecessor came to retire, and she was about to put an advert out for uh, her replacement, and was looking at it being in Southwest Michigan. And one of our challenges was, why are we restricting that now, given the change in our infrastructure? And so lo and behold, we find Mimi in Los Angeles. And it became a matter of, okay, we've got the right person. Do they have to be here? No. And so we made that absolutely work because we've been constantly looking at what's the best for the organization and asking questions of the old way of doing stuff. Because previously, yes, if we needed support staff, we put an advert out in Southwest Michigan because we had a building in Southwest Michigan. And that was the way we thought. But we're constantly been looking at this and evaluating it and asking the questions that comes back to these 8 things. And we measure everything against these 8 things. And at the time, in 2019, it did not make sense against our TrueSuccess to maintain that building and to be paying what it costs us to maintain that building. And we've managed to succeed completely virtually since with some lean, scalable infrastructure to make sure we do
I
that.
think the thing I take away from what Dave said is that these various elements, in order to get the best impact, you have to look at all the elements and make sure that they're aligned. And so, it's like, you know, what's our mission? What are we trying to achieve? You know, what's the process? What's the structure? What's the culture? And all those elements that, Dave touched on all of them, you know, they have to sort of work together, you know, in a symphony, if you like, because any one of those things not in alignment with the rest is going to be the source of, negative impact. So I wanted to capture that. I think also just very quickly too, sometimes lean gets translated into, careful with every penny and it's more so focused on, you know, expense constraint and or reduction, etc. And I know, for anybody who's a lean practitioner, that's probably, something that they hate because, lean is all about maximizing value. So I want to be clear that, our guide is when we use the word impact, so we're maximizing impact. And so what that means is, we eliminate waste wherever we find it, and we invest in opportunity and things that have high ROI. And so when we say lean, it doesn't mean minimal. It actually means whatever is high impact. And we constantly challenge ourselves. Should we spend money on this? As in like, not should we not spend money on it? Or let's not spend money. It's like, maybe we should spend more on this because this, you know, has an ROI. It has an impact. It'll pay for itself. So let's make sure that we spend money wisely on this lean, uh, scalable infrastructure.
Maybe that's, if I pick up on John, it's a good way to close out this series because every decision we make, we can come back to our 8 elements of true success and say, how is it impacting this set, this collective? And when it positively impacts that set, it's a good decision. And if it prioritizes one thing at the cost of another, then it's probably not a great decision. And so that's the reason why this has really worked for us. The 8 things we've talked about go from the positive impact to the greater good picture at the top, all the way down to the lean and scalable. It's what we measure our decision making against to make sure that we're driving in the right direction.
Mhm. Yep. And that's decision making at a micro level, like one day to the next, and also at a strategic level, because our true success is the foundation of our ocean, which sets up for our annual goals, our strategies, our key projects, and key accountabilities, and etc. So, it shapes like the mini decisions as well as the the biggest decisions that we make and everything in between.
Great. Well, thank you both. This has been super insightful, and I hope everyone who has been listening has been able to take some key points away. That does bring us to the end of this special anniversary series, and we hope our conversation on balance and infrastructure gave you useful takeaways. And if you haven't listened to the other episodes yet, now's the time, because each of the 8 true success goals is essential, and together they form the blueprint that has guided us for the 25 years that we've been in business, and we believe they can help you too. John and David, thank you for sharing your insights and your wisdom and your true success goals with everyone listening.
Thanks, Mimi.
My pleasure. Take care. Thanks, Mimi. Bye now.
That was the Humanergy Leadership Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe and visit humanergy.com for many more resources.